Amid poverty and starvation, two women living in a small hut suddenly find themselves terrorized by the appearance of a knight in full armor. How will they survive this terrifying presence, and what does the knight truly want? A woman named Anne patiently waits for her husband to return from the battlefield. She lives with Morwen, her husband's biological mother. Both Anne and Morwen are devoutly religious. They regularly attend church together. However, one day, Morwen commits an act that does not reflect the behavior of a faithful person. Outside the church after the service, Morwen approaches a pregnant woman to congratulate her and offer a prayer. But without the pregnant woman realizing it, Morwen's hand secretly reaches for the gold bracelet on her wrist. Morwen successfully steals it without being noticed. The poverty caused by her husband's absence at war has pushed them into desperation, forcing Morwen to do whatever it takes to survive. On their way home from church, as they approach their hut, Anne suddenly notices something strange. She sees a soldier on horseback wearing full battle armor and a war helmet. But oddly, Morwen, who is standing right beside her, cannot see him at all. Eventually, they arrive at the small hut they have been living in. They cook and eat whatever little food they have. Their lives are filled with hardship. That night, Anne is still hungry and is forced to gather scraps of leftover food just to ease her hunger. The next morning, at least they have something to survive on and enough ingredients to bake bread, because Morwen plans to go to the market to sell the gold bracelet she stole, along with a basket of crops that Anne has grown in their small garden. While Morwen is away at the market, Anne falls asleep and experiences a strange dream about her husband, Seamus. In her dream, Seamus returns from the war safe and unharmed, but moments later, he suddenly grabs his head in pain and begs Anne for help. Anne can only watch him from a distance, unable to reach him. Fortunately, Morwen, who has just returned from the market, wakes her up. One day, Anne experiences something unexpected. While walking along the beach, she meets her childhood friend, Jago, who had gone to war alongside Seamus. The three of them, Anne, Seamus, and Jago, have been close friends since childhood. Anne is relieved and happy to see that Jago has returned, but at the same time, she is confused as to why he has come back alone without her husband. Soon after, Jago is sitting inside the hut with Anne and Morwen. He eats their limited food greedily as if he hasn't eaten in days. Then Morwen asks him why Seamus has not returned. After finishing his meal, Jago finally explains that several soldiers, including himself and Seamus, had deserted the battlefield. But during their escape, they were ambushed by thieves. Jago managed to escape, but Seamus was not so lucky. He was fatally stabbed and died at the hands of the thieves. Anne and Morwen are devastated by the news. Seamus's tragic death, combined with their worsening starvation, pushes Anne and Morwen to commit acts far crueler than stealing a bracelet. One day, a shipwreck occurs not far from their home. Instead of helping the survivors, Morwen kills the remaining crew members and steals their valuables to survive. Their lifeless bodies are left abandoned on the shore. That night, Anne and Morwen are finally able to eat well thanks to the stolen goods. After learning of Seamus's death, their home becomes filled with sorrow and darkness. Not long after, Anne begins seeing a knight in full armor wandering near their village. The figure appears repeatedly, silently watching from a distance. Strangely, Anne is the only one who can see the knight. Morwen becomes concerned and begins to believe that Anne is losing her mind when she tells her about the terrifying figure.
The story shifts to Jago. It turns out he has dark motives after Seamus's death. Anne, now a widow, becomes the object of Jago's attention. Unexpectedly, he has been in love with Anne for a very long time. However, his attempt to get close to her does not go as smoothly as he had hoped. Even though Seamus is gone, Morwen refuses to allow Anne to have any kind of relationship with Jago. She forbids Anne from being even friends with him simply because she does not like him. Morwen even threatens Anne. She tells her that Anne must obey her commands. Anne must continue to take care of Morwen, even though they are no longer bound as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Anne must remain by her side, because if she leaves, a knight from hell will drag her soul down to hell. Morwen's behavior grows increasingly unstable. One day, a monk comes to their hut. He shares a meal with them despite their severe poverty. His purpose is to offer prayers for both of them. In addition, the monk offers them a rare holy artifact. He takes the item out of his bag to show them. Morwen's eyes widen when she sees the contents of the monk's bag, which are filled with valuable objects. Anne and Morwen refuse the artifact, claiming they have no money. Then Morwen pretends to retrieve something from behind him. Suddenly, she attacks the monk with a knife, killing him instantly. This time, Anne cannot accept Morwen's actions. She breaks down in tears, horrified that the monk has lost his life in such a cruel way. They dispose of the monk's body in the river, then carefully clean the bloodstains inside their hut to erase any evidence. Meanwhile, the terror of a knight in full armor wandering near their home grows even more threatening. One day, while Morwen is away, Anne goes out to search for her. Instead of finding Morwen, she encounters a mysterious man. Suddenly, a knight in full armor appears and swiftly kills the man without hesitation. Anne runs away in terror. Fortunately, she encounters Jago. She tells him everything that happened, and Jago tries to calm her down. Just like Morwen, Jago does not fully believe her. However, he tells Anne to come to him if she ever needs help. He also invites her to meet him at the place where they used to play together as children. That night, Anne quietly leaves her bed while Morwen is fast asleep. She sneaks out to meet Jago. They spend the entire night together. As time passes, their relationship becomes more intimate.
The story shifts from a romantic night to a tragic one. Anne stands in the middle of the road, blocking a man who is driving a horse-drawn cart filled with goods. As the man questions Anne, Morwen suddenly attacks him from behind, killing him instantly. They have become more skilled at what they do. After the robbery, one day Jago comes to their cottage, but instead of Anne, Morwen is the one who greets him and orders Anne to stay inside. Jago wants to see Anne, but Morwen refuses. Jago becomes angry at Morwen, arguing that Anne is still a young woman who deserves to live her life and have children. He tries to force his way inside, but Morwen quickly pulls out her knife, warning him to leave. Despite Morwen's strong disapproval, Anne and Jago's relationship continues to grow more intimate. Anne frequently meets him in secret without Morwen's knowledge. But then, something strange and horrifying finally happens to Morwen. One day, Morwen wakes up from her afternoon sleep and realizes Anne is not there. She calls out Anne's name and goes outside to look for her. Instead of finding Anne, Morwen is suddenly shocked to see the same knight in full armor that Anne had described, standing not far from their home. Morwen quickly hides behind the cottage. The knight in full armor dismounts his horse and slowly approaches the house. From her hiding place, Morwen watches him carefully. Her eyes soon fall on the pouch hanging from his belt, filled with valuable coins. Driven by hunger and desperation, Morwen finds the courage to steal it. The knight in full armor leaves the area, and Morwen quietly follows him from behind. He eventually stops at a secluded spot, the same place where Anne and Jago often meet in secret. When Morwen arrives, she sees Anne and Jago together, sharing an intimate moment. But Morwen's attention quickly returns to the knight in full armor. Seizing the opportunity while his guard is down, Morwen attacks him from behind. Through a gap in his armor, she drives her knife into a vital area, killing him instantly.
Morwen immediately grabs the pouch of valuable coins. She then attempts to remove his helmet. After struggling for a moment, she finally manages to pull it off. Later, Morwen returns to the cottage. Not long after, Anne also arrives, having just come back from meeting Jago. As soon as she enters, Anne tells Morwen that she has decided to leave and live with Jago. Morwen becomes furious. She yells at Anne and curses her, warning that a knight from hell will drag her down to hell. Terrified, Anne runs out of the cottage to find Jago.
Anne and Jago begin living together. One day, Anne invites Jago to attend church with her. Soon, they arrive there together. However, Jago seems uncomfortable and uninterested in being inside the church. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. As Anne prays for Morwen and Seamus, Jago appears visibly disturbed. He then reveals that Seamus did not die at the hands of bandits, as he had previously claimed. Instead, he says Seamus was killed by the people of Rotherham, who crushed his head with a stone. Anne is shocked. This directly contradicts Jago's earlier story that her husband was killed by thieves who stabbed him with a blade. It becomes clear that Jago has been lying. He begins to panic after realizing his mistake. Anne demands that he tell her the truth or she will never speak to him again. Cornered and desperate, Jago finally confesses. After they deserted the battlefield, Seamus began to change. Like his mother, he became consumed by greed. He mercilessly killed fellow deserters and stole their money. Then one day, Seamus spotted a knight in full armor riding on horseback. His dark ambition returned. When the knight approached their hiding place, Seamus attacked him without hesitation and killed him. Afterward, Seamus removed the knight's helmet. But moments later, Seamus began to panic. He screamed as he realized the helmet could not be removed. It was fused to him. The story then shifts back to Morwen, alone in her cottage. She retrieves the helmet of the knight in full armor from beneath her bed, the same knight she had killed earlier. In that moment, Morwen realizes the horrifying truth. The knight she killed was her own son. The story shifts back to the church. Anne, furious at Jago for hiding the truth, leaves him behind. Not far from the church, she discovers the lifeless body of a priest lying on the ground. Suddenly, a figure wearing the knight's helmet appears behind her. Terrified, Anne runs. She rushes back to Morwen's cottage, but Morwen is nowhere to be found. Instead, she encounters the same helmeted figure from the church. Anne tries to escape, but then the figure cries out, begging Anne to help remove the helmet. It is Morwen. Anne desperately tries to remove it, but she cannot. In desperation, she grabs a wooden cross from inside the cottage and strikes the helmet with it, cracking its surface. Finally, the helmet breaks open, but Morwen's face has become horribly disfigured and she is now blind. Slowly, the cracks in the helmet begin to repair themselves as if it were alive. Then, a dark shadow emerges from within the helmet and begins moving toward them. Anne and Morwen rush inside the cottage and lock the door. The shadow follows and begins knocking from the outside. Eventually, the knocking stops. Anne cautiously opens the door and sees the helmet lying on the ground. She picks it up. Morwen immediately warns her not to touch it, calling it a cursed helmet, but Anne believes it has no power over her. Time passes, and life appears to return to normal. Anne meets Jago once again. He pleads with her to come back to him, but Anne refuses. She tells him that she no longer belongs to anyone, not to him, not to Morwen. She belongs only to herself. Despite everything, Anne continues caring for Morwen, who is now helpless and broken. One day, Anne prepares to leave the cottage, promising Morwen she will return before sunset. But at the very end, something mysterious happens. As Anne reaches the doorway, she hears whispers coming from the forest. She follows the voice. Inside a chest, she finds the same cursed helmet,
the one that brought suffering to her husband and her mother-in-law. Anne picks it up. She stares at it, the same way Seamus once did, the same way Morwen once did. The helmet waits, tempting her.